The Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast. Real Doctor Who fans with real Doctor Who opinions.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast, your go-to podcast for all things Doctor Who, from classic era to new, to Big Finish and beyond. I'm your host, Brett, and I'm ready to dive into, today's fascinating discussion. This podcast is going to be talking about some of the things that occurred in season 2, and just to, pull the curtain aside for a second, just reveal some of the things that I do for the podcast. Generally, when I, map out what I'm going to do for the podcast, I have some notes, I have some plans and directions that I want to go to, but it can be free flowing, and according to, who is co-hosting with me, depends on what else is going on. However, because of, certain situations, is just going to be a solo show for right now. I'm very excited because summer vacation has begun. I will be able to deliver more podcasts in a more consistent basis, especially since the move is also done. If my room tone is a little off, it is because it is not treated whatsoever. Anyway, that was one of the, behind the curtain things. Second thing is surrounding the title of the podcast. Like I said, I create notes and decide to, about where I want to go with certain things. Now, with this podcast, the title came before I even planned the podcast. So you could say, yeah, are you, clickbaiting? Yes, kind of, sort of, but not really. Because clickbaiting would be to do a title and then come nowhere close to it till the very end and then just say it's no big deal. Or clickbaiting would be to say something outrageous and then, basically whatever. This title, I love it. Hiatus, my dear, and not a moment too soon is, I will admit, kind of clickbaity, but not. So stay tuned because I do have some thoughts. I'm going to go deep diving into certain things, and I'd love to hear from you, the listener. Please email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. That is ALHAMBRA audio@gmail.com. You can tweet the show. DMs are open at Alhambra Podcast, and you can leave a comment, subscribe on YouTube. We read everything that is sent to us, and I would love to get more. The only thing I've gotten more lately is lots of spam, because I guess this, some corporations have found our email and have subscribed us to a whole bunch of things that we don't want. But I would love to get your feedback, your thoughts revolving around, RTD Part 2, even the Chibnall era, plus or minus, good or bad or neutral. Would be loving to hear what you have to say. So I want to first start off by looking at the ratings. Now, again, I know and understand, we've talked about it. I don't want to be a ratings thing, but I do need to cover this. So stay with me, because this goes into the Hiatus, my dear tagline for the podcast. So when we peel back the layers of the RTD Part 2, I think we need to... it's not as simple as some might want to conclude. I've been watching some YouTubers. Some YouTubers are laughing at, certain things. Some of them are just saying, see, it's okay. It's not that bad. Okay. So if we pull back all the way to the 2023 60th anniversary specials, the special number 1, 5.08 million for overnight. Then you have a 2.6 million bump for 7-day plus 4 screens. So the difference between the two is 2.6. Okay. Keep that in mind. Episode 2, the ratings go down. Episode 3, the ratings go down. The Christmas special, which is Ncuti's first episode, it goes slightly up to 4.73 million. The 7-day plus 4 screens is 7.49 million. So again, you almost have 2.75 million bump between the overnight and that. And I think it is super important to be focusing on, because a lot of people are saying, and in the previous podcast, I just said, yes, I understand. It is a double-edged sword how people are consuming media. But if we want to take a look at the RTD Part 2 fairly and using metrics that I believe actually lead to a hiatus, I think we have to go back to where it all began with special number 1 and the overnight versus 7-day. Now, Disney Plus came in at this time, but if memory serves, I believe, I can't remember if Disney Plus did the specials at, I want to say at a later time. It wasn't available first thing in the morning, 5 a.m. my time or something like that. It was, but I believe that they also did not demand the iPlayer have it available at that time. And I believe that there was some change between this 60th specials and the season 1. However, I feel as though that the Christmas special, now special number 1, me and Liam talked about it. I can't remember if Legion was there, but we talked about it, and I just said, was not impressed with, Rose Tyler, Donna Noble's daughter, and some of her speech and some of the things that occurred. Episode 2, I really liked because it reminded me of The Thing, not Midnight. Going to say not Midnight. Hate Midnight. However, I'm going to get a Disney Plus subscription just so I can watch the Midnight sequel that a lot of people are either A, for, or B, totally against. I haven't read anybody that was, meh on the whole thing. Special number 3, I absolutely hated the giggle. I feel as though that episode really could have divided the fans just as much as The Timeless Child. Then we get the first Christmas special with Ncuti, and then I know, remembering talking from Liam, he really was all for the fantastical fantasy element for this season instead of the science fiction and whatnot, which I totally disagree. And I think one of those things really has to, I think some of the fantasy elements that RTD Part 2 did really made things hard to like. If you're going to make a fantasy episode and just to kind of go throughout season 1 and season 2, this had to have been the overarching theme, the overarching villain throughout the entirety of the specials through season 2 had to have been the mind robber. And we had to be in the land of fiction. I understand what happened with the Celestial Toymaker, but it doesn't, again, we're taking a character and we're superpowering him up to the point where he is infecting and bleeding actual real land. And you could even say that that's maybe why Isaac Newton was black, is he did that. And then, of course, we have the stupid Mavity thing that occurred. It only makes sense if all of this stuff took place in the land of fiction. The regeneration of the Ronnie for Mrs. Flood. For Mrs. Flood to even be the Ronnie, it also doesn't make any sense. It's, when she broke the fourth wall, that could have been the hint. That could have been the Saxon situation. That could have been the bees going missing type of situation. That she is literally breaking the fourth wall, giving you a hint that that she is aware that currently these characters are in a make-believe land. And if you want to have fantasy, it is perfectly fine in a science fiction show, because I do know, anyway, but I feel as though there's way too much fantasy, and I think that came through during the Ncuti's first Christmas special with the elves and the oh my gosh, blah. Sorry, I have nothing nice to say. My mom says if you have nothing nice to say, criticize it more. Oh, sorry, that's not what she said. So then we get episode 1 from season 1. Now, the overnight figures go down remarkably from 4 point whatever it was, 4.67, I think, to 2.6 million overnight. Now, Disney has now gotten involved. They have the expectation of it being available on the iPlayer also first thing in the morning. So then you have, the 7-day plus 4 screens is at 4 million. Okay, maybe. But again, why would it take a massive hit from the 7-day plus from episode 1 to Christmas special number 1? I understand Christmas, more people are together, but you'd think that there would be an initial bump up for this. And from each point forward, now remember the difference between episode 1 of the specials and, episode 2, episode 3 was about 2.5-ish million from overnight to 7 plus. Now, with episode 1 and throughout the first series, the difference is only 1.5, meaning that about 1.25 million people walked away just from episode 1 from the specials. And then as you go through the first season, the overnight goes down 2.4, 2.04, 2.62, which, if memory serves me right, there was a big football match that led into the game, because the following week it went down to 2.12, 2.11, 2.2. Episode 8, first season, the big reveal of Sutek and all that fun stuff that doesn't make any sense when you actually think about it. But who cares about canon and continuity when you can jangle some keys and introduce a villain that the new Who fans probably aren't familiar with, and you're only dangling keys to the classic fans that, if you look back to it, RTD said, we don't care about that. The person that Jinx Monsoon said that for every one fan that walks away, 2 fans will take their place. Actually, for every 1 fan that walked away, it looks like 2 more fans additionally walked away as well, too. So it's really hard to see. You had Ncuti also antagonize the fans that said, go, if you don't like the show or whatnot, go touch grass. Perhaps they did. Compared that to, I just barely got back from watching the most recent Mission Impossible. And whatever you think of Tom Cruise, however you feel about him, I know in the early 2000s, he just seemed to be an insane individual. But you know what? For Mission Impossible, this last one, Final Reckoning, for the Top Gun Maverick, he thanked. Now, I know it looked like he was reading off of a teleprompter, but he thanked the fans for being there. And he basically said, thank you. We do it for you. We do it because we love cinema and we want to entertain you. And I hope you enjoy this because we have kept this franchise alive for you. And when you think back about the Mission Impossible stuff, you have good versus evil. When you think back to the early beginning of RTD's, whatnot, good versus evil. Now in RTD Part 2, it is, it almost seemed antagonistic sometimes. And I haven't seen it, but from the reviews that I've heard, seems antagonistic to the people that he doesn't agree with politically. And he finds them evil. Okay? And again, I can't back that up 100% because I haven't seen it yet. I will see some of it. I don't think I want to see all of it. But in doing so, you are turning off a percentage of your audience. Now, you could say, well, BBC, you're forced to pay the licensing fee. So you're stuck with this regardless of whether people watch it or not. And hopefully certain things happen because I think that if that was the attitude, you're going to watch it, we're going to get money whether you like it or not. I think that has to come to an end. Anyway, I digress. So the second Christmas special, which was actually for me personally better than the first one, was 4.11 million. It had a boost of about 1.6 million. Actually, sorry, I take that back. Math wrong. 1.8 million. So difference between that. So it kind of bumped up from the overnight to 7-day plus. You can also say, well, that was during a Christmas holiday season. Maybe more people have more time. But again, if you go back to the previous year, the average was 2.5. So again, you still have about 0.75 people having walked away. Now we look at the most current ratings for the most recent season of Doctor Who, maybe. I had it up just a second ago, and now it's not there. There it is. Hey, there we are. We're back. So season 2, episode 1 starts off with exactly 2 million overnight. The 7-day plus 4 screens is about 1.5 million addition. Then you have the decline, the consistent decline, basically all the way up to episode 6, which, you had it came in from you had the football audience that led into it. Plus you also had whatever the Eurovision or whatnot that also led into that. So you could say, did people stick around? Well, episode 7 looks like it gained some viewers, going from 1.83 from, the previous episode minus, from episode 5, which didn't have anything big leading into it, went 1.59. So it did gain about 0.3 million percent of a viewer, but 7-day plus 4 screens dropped to exactly 1 million. Now, here is what you can also consider looking forward regarding that drop of the 7 plus 4 screens is perhaps a lot of people sat out watching it on the iPlayer, waiting to binge the whole thing, the entire series. Because again, we are a binging society now for entertainment. So perhaps the 7 plus 4 for episode 8 will be up, 1.5 million, or maybe, who knows? It'll be interesting to see where that is at. But you have the steady decline. And one of the things that, again, to, refresh your memory, RTD, Shurigatwa, the new companion, have been antagonizing the fans and, Jinx Monsoon, for everyone that walks away, 2 more people start watching. It hasn't happened. You compare that again to Tom Cruise and just popcorn movies. And they might not be significant, but what people want, in my opinion, is to have escapism. And if you are, a fan that doesn't fit in with RTD's politics, and, you see yourself on screen and he, basically sees you as evil, well, my friend, let's go back to when he had to change Davros because he himself struggled with the thought of seeing people as evil, being in wheelchairs, even though, and that's the most bizarre thing, is that's on you, buddy. That is only on you to, have that personality fault to associate evilness with, wheelchair people. You don't put that on the greater British society or the world. If that's what you fear when you have an evil, maniacal, mad scientist who does and conducts experiments on people to have purity, but all you can see is the wheelchair, that is on you. You had to change the sonic screwdriver from its standard typical screwdriver look to something that looked like a next generation phaser / remote control because I can't have it look like a gun. Well, my friend, can I tell you what Chibnall and RTD Part 2 have done to the Indian community or Pakistani? Because Sasha Dewan, evil. The lady who played the new Ronnie, evil. What do they have in common? They're evil characters. Oh, wait, they're of Indian descent. So if by RTD's logic, people of Indian descent are also evil. And he's just not aware that he and Chibnall both have this personality flaw. It's really quite interesting. You can't. And here's the interesting thing. So we went to a play. We took our elementary school kids to a play the other day. And they had a black Peter Pan. And some people in the audience gasped. And I just thought, oh, crap. This could have been just a good kid actor. He happens to be black. Doesn't matter. Doesn't ruin my enjoyment. It's okay. It's fine. There's nothing to, look heavy into. The kid did his job. He was good, very athletic, whatnot. However, at one point in time, at the very end of the movie, the black Peter Pan is mimicking first, shadowing second, the creator of the Peter Pan series. This black kid is in the man's shadow. Now, what do you think? Did we cast Peter Pan as a black person because he would make the perfect shadow for a character? It goes both ways. One side can be offended because of the casting of a, non-typical, skin color of what, but then when you turn around and see what happened, now the other side can get offended. Maybe it was just a good casting. Maybe somebody who was racist wanted him to be a shadow. I don't know. I wasn't there on the casting thing, but I think it's quite funny that it can irk both sides of the aisle. Whereas we can all I want is escapism. And if you're going to be super preachy, and there was an article and also a clip of somebody going around saying, I'm a leftoid too, or something like that. But even this is too preachy. And then there was somebody who famously, I can't remember if it was the Guardian, Radio Times, or something like that. Same author said basically a year ago that this show, Doctor Who, is no longer for straight white men. And then a year later just said, maybe this show is losing viewership because it's getting too preachy. Well, wait. A year ago, you said that the preachiness was good and, straight white guys need not apply. Now you're saying, wait, the show quality is going down because it's getting too preachy. Which is it? Because a year prior, it was fine that it was preachy. But now as we're in the, 1.59 million overnight ratings and only a bump up of an average during the second season of about 1.5 million, meaning that a lot of people have walked away from the show even further. And again, Liam's guy Theories has a good, perspective, but it also begs the question, why are people walking away? Again, there's more streaming services to watch. Disney Plus has done a number on not Big Finish, on Doctor Who. But again, when you really pull back the layers, and if you find yourself Russell T Davies, enemy, and you don't have to agree with people politically, but can we agree that the first 4 seasons plus the specials were just fun? There were gay characters and nobody cared. Why is it so? Because it wasn't a constant in your face. There was a moment in time during the most recent Mission Impossible where I believe Kate Blanchett or something like that was the president's aide. Okay. And there was, the president thought she had made a huge mistake, and had Tom Cruise wanted a message or whatnot, he would have had those two just like make out right there on the screen. There was another point in time where there's 2 other guys that could have just made out on the screen. There's another point in time where I was just like, I was waiting for this person to be like, by the way, if you think anything less of me, I happen to be gay or I happen to be trans. None of that happened. And I think the latest Mission Impossible and the Mission Impossible series has the let's just have fun for fun's sake be the whole situation of the storyline. You can have two people of the same sex kiss. It doesn't matter. But if you're going to lecture everybody, well, why are you looking at me funny, Ethan? Huh? That's when it becomes a problem. And I think that RTD Part 2, in my opinion, and I haven't watched any of season 2, but again, from what I've read from articles, for both pro and con, from, even Radio Times people or whatnot, the messaging is a problem. From the people on Doctor Who Facebook pages, it is a problem. Why doesn't Big Finish do stuff like this? Because if they were too heavy in the messages, they are an independent company that is not publicly funded by the greater British people. So what would happen if they got too heavy-handed with their message? Oh, people will stop buying our crap. If people stop buying our crap, guess what? We're all out of a job. Crap, ceases to exist. So that's my thought on the whole thing. Sorry, that was a lot longer than I thought I was going to go to, but I felt as though some of these numbers and whatnot really needed to have a closer, I think, reasonable, rational look at everything. And I hope it came across that way, that I'm, not trying to criticize a show because I'm making a living from YouTube, that I'm making criticism or asking questions that I believe have the right to be asked. And at the end of the day, all right, well, okay, let's look at the the elephant in the room, who's in the corner juggling unicorns through with chainsaws. Yes, that's sorry. The sentence escapes me. So let's get to the Regeneration. I have seen it on YouTube. I have seen people's thoughts on YouTube. I have even seen on Facebook Legion's thoughts on the whole thing. And again, I will tell you, not the biggest fan of the Jodie era. I stuck with it. I was constantly, don't worry, it will get better. And it didn't. Don't worry, it will get better. And it didn't. And then, Space Babies was my breaking point because of the regeneration, because of the Timeless Child. Space Babies was my breaking point. And I watched a handful of episodes in season 1. But for the most part, I became apathetic to the new season of Doctor Who. Not Doctor Who in general, but to anything new that came up. And that's why I actually didn't want to even do any videos surrounding, or videos. I am on YouTube, but not on a camera. Any stuff focusing on each episode breakdown because I don't care. I'm not going to try to boost the YouTube channel or the podcast by saying controversial things and getting people riled up. All I'm going to say is my opinion. And I think Jodie Whittaker was the better actor compared to Ncuti. I know a lot of people would disagree. I know Liam and Legion probably disagree. I don't think Ncuti is a good actor. When he ran in, what was the Moffat episode? He ran similarly to how, what's his face, who is the Flash, Ezra Miller ran. Ezra Miller ran as the Flash as somebody who'd never ran before in his entire life, but was only mimicking the movements of something that he saw on YouTube, or I almost said Jib Jab. Stupid brain rot video website. For some reason, my brain wants to say Chip Jab. It's not. Anyway, yeah, Ezra Miller never looked natural running, yet he was supposed to be the Flash. Ezra Miller, Ncuti Gatwa on that episode that Stephen Moffat wrote looked the same exact way. And what was it? I saw one of the scenes for the most recent season where, Ncuti Gatwa's doctor constantly calling everybody babes, or whatnot, and somebody told him not to. And then he changed and said, okay, honey. And it's just like, but wait, I thought we were supposed to, be respectful of people's wishes. If you're not supposed to, I don't go by this pronoun or whatnot, but he can disregard what people would prefer because reasons. So there's lots of inconsistencies with everything surrounding Ncuti Gatwa, but I feel as though he is a good, not main attraction actor, but maybe a second tier, third tier who has lines, has some impact on the story, but the story does not revolve around him. That's what I would classify Ncuti Gatwa as. And I do think Jodie Whittaker is probably a second tier where, kind of like Broadchurch, even though she was the mother of the kid that, plummeted to his death or whatnot on Broadchurch, she was the kind of main star, but there were so many other elements to the story that prevented her from constantly being the main star too. Then, of course, you had the whole distraction of what's his face from Rory, the guy who played Rory, whatever his name is, and David Bradley and all that became distracting in Broadchurch, is all these cameos and whatnot. Anyway, this is not a Broadchurch breakdown and complaining podcast. This is Doctor Who one. So regarding the regeneration, my understanding, and I will watch this, but my understanding is Ncuti's doctor gave some of his regeneration energy to a baby that may or may not have existed so it can continue to exist. But is that the reason why he didn't buy regenerate? I thought this was going to be a thing going forward forever. And then again, how did the Ronnie regenerate? Mrs. Flood remained Mrs. Flood, but the Ronnie, I hope it gets explained, because it doesn't seem consistent, because, the Celestial Toymaker decided to do this with the Doctor's timeline. So does that mean that the Doctor is the Ronnie? I mean, it doesn't add up. It's not tied into a neat little bow. And I think similarly to what Chris Chibnall did with Jodie Whittaker's Timeless Child and all of her memories, Russell T Davies did the same thing with regenerating Ncuti's doctor into Billie Piper. And that would be great if she's just Billie Piper and, just starts, singing music and song. Oh, no, never mind. That would not be good. Take that back. Don't go forward with that. But I've seen a lot of articles and some people have said that this is the jump the shark moment for Doctor Who. Now, if you want to go back and hear somebody discuss the jump the shark moment for Doctor Who, Liam said that the jump the shark moment for Doctor Who was back in the Capaldi era with Kill the Moon. And that's what he thought. He thought that was Kill the Moon was the jump the shark moment. And one could say, wow, Liam, at the time I thought it's still too early to be jump the shark moment, but maybe he had something. This just seems to be a ploy. And the interesting thing about it is, I remember when the Ninth Doctor and Rose 12-part series was announced, and some people thought that, Billie Piper was trying to antagonize the whole situation because she was wearing a Bad Wolf shirt. And there was some forums that were talking about that, I believe she was there with Chris. I can't remember 100%. I don't have the photo up in front of me right now. But it was discussed that maybe she's doing that to antagonize Chris and she's still really close to RTD or whatnot. And one could think that maybe she wore that shirt merely as a shout out to a tease to what she knew was eventually going to come and her being back on the show. Now, I do like that her Instagram or whatever post was a rose is a rose is a rose. So to me, that reads that she's coming back just as Rose. But then it would be quite interesting to find out if the 14th, I heard a theory that this Rose and the 14th Doctor are going to recombine to make the 16th Doctor. That would be so stupid. That would be so stupid. I would hate that so much. That would be like, that would be just beyond cringe right there. It'll be interesting to see. We've heard that David Tennant, it says he's not coming back anytime soon. I think this show is all over the place. Stunt casting currently, as a lot of people and myself believe that bringing back Rose, complete stunt casting. Especially when you look at what was previously announced, that RTD back in 2024 was almost done with his Series 3 scripts. And Ncuti Gatwa on the Graham Norton show was saying we're looking at shooting Series 3 soon, but that got cut from the Graham Norton show. Then you probably have Disney, who has just reported a massive earnings loss, as well as perhaps they're not getting the viewership that they were hoping for, and or I think this also has to be put into consideration. The Disney might not have gotten the viewing figures that they thought they were going to get, but also they might not have gotten what they wanted, was the complete ownership and IP of Doctor Who. And I think that's something that has to be considered and thrown in as a possibility for why Disney might be backing out of these shows. Now, I hope that they can be purged from Disney Plus, because again, as me and Liam discussed a couple podcasts ago, in order for you to watch everything, you either have to own everything on Blu-ray, DVD, or whatnot, or if you want to watch just about every episode that from the classic era in America, you have to have BritBox, and they have practically everything. Then, if you want to watch from 2005 Series 1 all the way to the Flux, you have to have HBO Max. And if you want to watch the new stuff, you have to have Disney Plus. I hope that Disney is fed up, and you'd think that they would probably sell it, but I don't think HBO/Warner is in any position to purchase anything from Disney. So it's probably going to live there, and because Disney did pay a pretty penny for everything. So I think we're going to be stuck with that. It's going to be interesting. I will do a couple of, I almost said video. I'm so glad I did it. I'm going to do a couple of podcasts discussing some future things surrounding the war between the land and the sea, as well as some other things that I have also in the back pocket as well too. And I hope to get to listening to some more Big Finish stuff. There's some Big Finish news I'm excited to talk about too, so please stay tuned for that. What are your thoughts about this podcast? What are your thoughts about the Doctor Who going on possible a hiatus? Are you for it? Are you against it? Are you like, you know what? I think it's going to be 2 years, because Theory said that he heard a guy from Rumor that says at 2007. We're still not sure about that. I don't think it's going to. Everybody wants to say it's canceled. That's ridiculous. I don't think it's going to be canceled. I do say hiatus. I disagree with Russell T Davies where he says that this is going to, the Wilderness Years the first time led to a lot of good writers, and this break will also lead to a lot of good writers. And I kind of agree and disagree at the same exact time, because the quality writing that Chibnall had for his era and the quality writing that you could say RTD had for season 2 was not that good also. And so I think you're going to have to get people who are just legitimate Doctor Who fans from 2005 who love it, who own it, who have read the target versions of because that's a different thing, but difference probably, and I want to do a difference between the Wilderness Years and stuff like that in another podcast also, but that's the difference, is the people during the first Wilderness Years, they really only had the target novelizations, and because that was the early days of VHSs, people only could watch things that were available if they recorded it off of their TV. So, and whereas we have it also readily available too. So I think you're going to have to get, I think the best writers would come from the late 2009s through the early Matt Smith eras. If you could find kids who matured during that time that were super passionate about the show, I think you'll get a solid bunch of writers. If you get the later Moffat era or the Chibnall era people or the RTD Part 2 era, I don't want any part of those writers, in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there. Thanks again for listening and watching. Again, comment, like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. Until next time, I will see you in time.
You have been listening to the Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast. Doctor Who is owned and trademarked by the BBC. Doctor Who Alhambra is not affiliated with the BBC or Big Finish. No infringement is intended. Visit our website at alhambrapodcast.weebly.com or email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. Tweet us at Alhambra Podcast. That is ALHAMBRA Podcast. Thank you.